Yep, we're here.
We are
We are live. All right, welcome to everybody in the world.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day, the day of love. Although I trust that this is not the only day you celebrate love. You gotta love the one you're with. I trust this is not the only day you celebrate love. Valentine's Day, culmination of all the love that should be going on in your love relationship. But anyway, happy Valentine's Day. My last third degree show.
Say it to me.
Babe, happy Valentine's
left
Day.
the house.
I was waiting for this moment.
No, you
I
weren't.
wanted my happy Valentine's Day to be genuine. I wanted it to be the first one.
I messed it up.
I wanted the one on camera to be the first one I said.
Okay.
Happy Valentine's Day,
Thank you.
LaShawn,
Happy
with your bad
Valentine's
chocolate
Day.
self. Anyway, my last show, there was a request. It was, we ended episode 1. One of the questions was, Pastor Andy, what the heck? It's been great. Thank you. But we're getting sick of looking at your face.
No.
Where is LaShawn? When is she going to come on here? Grace this show with her awesome presence. She is here with us today. And we're here to answer questions. It's a special edition of the third degree.
Yes.
Pastor Andy,
Excited.
my awesome wife LaShawn. We've been married for 28 years.
28 years.
Coming up in June. Really in a relationship for 30. Start off as friends.
Yeah.
Then
We're still friends.
Still friends. Okay. And so anyway, we're here.
We are here.
Let's jump into this thing.
I'm excited.
Let's rock it. Questions?
All right, just make sure you kind of repeat or paraphrase the question
Sure.
so that people can hear you since we're using two different mics.
Sure.
How do you deal with transitions as a couple? For example, moving, job changes, and finances.
How do you deal with transitions when it comes to job, children, moving different places?
And finances.
Finances. It's a great question. I think that, honestly, communication is the key. I think how well you could talk with one another, how well you communicate with each other. The fact of the matter is that there are going to be situations in life that are going to throw you curveballs. And to me, that's the real test of your relationship. Anybody can shout when the sun is shining, but what do you do when the storms come?
Right.
One of the things that we teach in the premarital stuff that we do, what we were taught, is to build this communication bridge, this kind of structure of understanding, because storms are inevitable. But you got to build the structure when the sun is shining, when stuff is good, when things are in a good place.
Yep.
Because couples try to communicate important information in the middle of the challenge.
Terrible time.
And then that's a hard time. Now when you really need to be able to communicate, because you're different, it's really hard. And you needed to have that structure built before you dealt with the transition, before you dealt with the move.
Right.
So I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's easier to deal with transitions in life, and you're going to have them. You cannot avoid them, especially when you have life just being thrown at you. You don't know what's going to happen in this economy half the time.
Yeah.
But even with that said, if you have an agreement on those major areas, you just go back to the agreement that you have, because come rain or shine, you just go back to the foundation that you've set for your life. And that should happen before you get married, before you decide to put everything together, so that when you face those winds, y'all weather it together.
I think that's one of the things that's so interesting that you're saying that, babe, because I think that's one of the things that's interesting to me about this generation now. It's almost like they're not thinking about marriage as an institution or their relationship as an institution to be sought. It's almost kind of like, oh, I met this person, and maybe there are people that are like, oh no, I'm looking for marriage as an institution. But I think that there are people who are almost more like, well, I met this person, and so now as a result of the love I have for this person, I'm considering marriage.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, I want to understand marriage or understand what it means to be together and what those requirements are. And then I'm preparing myself for that role.
Yeah.
You're preparing yourself for that role.
Right.
And those roles that you will play in that role,
Yeah.
the things that you will do in that role. And much like what you said, it's like there are things that we kind of talked about. Okay, well, when the kids get here, this is going to happen. When we move, this is going to be your responsibility. This is going to be my responsibility. And people are coming together in such a kind of a haphazard kind of way. Although I know that there's a lot of people that are meeting online and doing that kind of stuff, but I think that in a way, relationships today are a little less intentional, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. But I want to make sure we answer the question: how do we weather this storm? How do we deal with the transition? We're talking about what you should have done before the transition came.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Okay, so if you say you don't have the foundation of agreement in whatever area you're dealing with your trouble, then what you need to do is just let the dust settle. Don't go killing each other over money, because money is not supposed to control you. You're supposed to control it, right? So with that said, let the dust settle, and then find a time and a place to come and sit at a table, literally sit at a table and say, what are we going to do now, because we're in this thing together? And you guys come to an agreement. There are so many resources out there for whatever you're dealing with, even if it's a sex issue. There are resources to get you over the mountain that you're facing. So first, let the dust settle. Don't kill each other. Come back together. Don't blame each other, but just fight together.
Something we talked about, I've talked about it on the show, kind of, and we talked about it, kind of being on the same side. Okay, just like right now we're sitting on the same side of the table, questions are being posed to us. Sometimes couples end up on the opposite side of a net. It's almost like they're battling against each other instead of seeing themselves as a team together on the same side of the net, battling against poverty, or battling against the attack against your kid, or battling against the misunderstanding that's going on, or battling against the fact that, hey, you got a new job and you got to move.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, okay, how are we going to face this thing together as a team and not allow the situation to divide us? Because that's what happens in life, is that we get divided. Okay.
Yeah, we can.
One of my best friends, you know, him and his wife, they tragically lost their daughter. She was 14 years old, and you know, great couple, amazing. Lost their daughter, and he said to me that after their daughter passed, his wife was out of town when she passed.
Yeah.
So, you know, his wife came back. When she came back, he said to her, I'll never blame you for being gone if you never blame me for the fact that I was here.
Yeah.
It was like they realized, okay, this is something that could end our relationship. So right in the front, let's say, okay, I'm not going to blame you because you weren't here when she passed away. Maybe if you had been here. And if you don't blame me for being out of town, I won't blame you for being here.
Yeah.
I think that because they decided they got to face this thing together. They can't let this tragedy separate them, because tragedies will divide you if you let them, but you want to work them out together.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
All right, next question. How do you deal with being a young follower of Christ and your parents may not be taking you deeper in Him?
Oof, my God. Your parents may not be. How do you deal with being a young follower of Christ and your parents are not taking you deeper? I think I can answer that.
It's a good question.
That's a good question, because I'm going to assume your parents are either not that serious about God, or they're just not saved. So I was the first one saved. My mother was an alcoholic. I know Pastor, Andy's told you about my upbringing, and if you want to call it an upbringing. My mother wasn't saved. I was being raised by people that were doing all kinds of craziness. So I was, in essence, the only Christian. How do you deal with that? I'll just tell you what I did. I basically took what the word says about God setting the lonely in family, Psalm 68:5, I believe it is. And I took that to heart. And although I had to live with these people and love these people, I decided that, okay, Lord, you'd open a door for me to find out what real Christians are like, to be with people that are like-minded. So I started spending my time with positive people at the church, because you can't find negative people at the church, but we won't get off on that. I started spending my time with people that were going to help me to be strong enough to have this kind of biological family. That was my way of dealing with it, and I think that that's a biblical way of dealing with it, and here I am.
I also think that, I think you're sharing the tools on how to do it.
Yeah.
Because a part of the point of church, to some extent, is for you to now be in this family of God.
Yeah.
And you have to accept your parents and your people for what they are and what they give you. Everybody has to do that. And believe me, let's say your parents were, don't believe the hype. There's a whole lot of people that have saved parents or church parents that aren't necessarily good parents. Just because your parents go to church don't necessarily make them attentive. Just because your parents don't know the Lord or aren't as serious about Christianity as you doesn't mean that all of a sudden disqualifies them from being good parents. And so receive from them what you can receive from them. And when it comes to trying to get deeper truth, well, that's what you're in church for. That's what you get a mentor for. That's what you go to a small group for. That's what you go to a foundations class for. That's what you don't stop your mother from being your mother just because she doesn't know the Lord as well as you know her.
Sure.
At some point, your parents are going to let you down. No parents are trying to do it. We're parents trying to do it the best that we can. We haven't been perfect.
Parents are just older people.
That's right.
You know? And just like you have friends that are more mature in your generation than others, same thing with adults. There are some adults that may be better Christians than others, meaning they're just more saved than others, or they're more mature than other adults. Age does not make you great or make you mature or saved. It's what you do. And so I agree with, Pastor Andy when he says, hey, you go to the church, and this is what I was saying in a nutshell, is that you go to the church and you find out, hey, I can learn over here. And I know that sometimes we have kids in our youth group have complained about their parents not allowing them to even come. That's a tough one. But, if you are getting of age, and you could still find a way to be connected to better people in the church than, just depending on what your parents will or will not let you do.
Even if your parents don't really want to let you come to church, as a result of this awesome tool, there's so many ways in which you can still get information and still get blessing and still find truth. And there's so many different ways that you can. At some point in your life, there are going to be people, your parents, your friends, or whatever, who aren't going to have something to give you. Now, you can either complain and fuss about the fact that they don't have that to give, or you can say, okay, this is where they are, but it's all right because I'm going to get that from this person.
Right.
Your mother may be great. Your mother may be saved. Your father may be great, but your father may never have dealt with being in medical school, or never dealt with playing on a football team, or never dealt with dealing with a child that's dealing with asthma. And you're going to have to get counsel from someone else that may have some knowledge in an area that your parents don't have. And if your parents are good, like we're trying to be good parents, we are not threatened by other people that can help your child. Believe me, at the end of the day, we need you. It takes a village. And so, just understand, just because your parents are not super deep Christians does not mean that they can't love you, does not mean they can't bring good stuff to you in your life, and it does not mean that they're totally disqualified from giving you any kind of advice or counsel. They may not be able to lead you spiritually deeper, but there's still a wisdom that they may have when it comes to life.
Yeah, that's good.
It's a good question.
Next question. What is your advice on having children your first year of marriage?
Oof, don't do that. Are you seeing me? Don't do that.
Yeah.
I know he'll add a whole lot onto that. Don't do that to yourself. Well, you know what? Let me just back up and say, let me just reel that back in. So, people are getting married older. If your situation is that you are older and you have to have kids, you have to have kids. But just know it's going to be a lot more work. My prayer is that you've built a good foundation for your relationship before the first year of your marriage, and you're strong enough to have a little person come into your life. But if that's not your case, if you have some time, give yourself at least, 2 years, just to have fun and enjoy your marriage. Travel a little and, take road trips and go out late. We would go out late at 12 o'clock at night to get pizza and fruit punch because that's all we could afford.
Right.
But, try to enjoy yourself.
Boston House of Pizza, baby.
Boston House. I'm going to Boston soon. And I'm trying to lose 5 pounds before I can have
Babe,
pizza.
you look good. You look good.
I need 5 more pounds so I can have pizza. Anyway, I digress. I just think that you should just give yourself some time, if you can, to enjoy your marriage and make mistakes and learn about each other. But if you don't have time, get as much support as you can. Other couples that are married, their marriages are good, they're successfully married, they get along well, you're going to need them to help you if you're going to bring children into the marriage within the first year.
Yeah, and I think that beyond just that, I mean, I think right now we're trying to raise our children just ourselves. It's very interesting when we talk about,
we were just talking about this.
when we're talking about having kids, and you know, I often kind of talk about the fact that your kids are a glue. I just said this to a young couple. Your kids are a glue that do keep you together. They make you work, because you're like, we have these kids together, so we need to work this thing out.
Yeah.
Because if you have a child with someone, you're connected to them forever. So you're going to have to see them at a graduation. You're going to have to see them at something. So it incentivizes you to try to work on it. At the same time, children are a storm that can mess your marriage up if you let them.
Yeah.
And so just like any storm that's coming, you want to be prepared for it. You're trying to tape your windows down and board up and get ready. In the exact same way, if you can take some time to build that communication bridge, get some stuff going, you really are talking, you've had some of your arguments, you've gotten some of that stuff out of the way, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
At the same time, understand that if you do have children, the more family you have around you that's going to help you, along with other good couples, but also if you've got family around you that you can trust, that's going to be even better. If you have a good relationship with your mom, if he has a great relationship with his mom, if you have a great relationship with your parents, if you've got a really good relationship with your siblings or uncles or aunties, whoever your extended family is, if those people can be a support to you as well, so that you can actually still do a date night.
Yeah.
Because you have somebody that you can trust little Junior with. You can take, you know, you can drop little Janet off with your aunt and trust that nothing's going to happen to her.
Yeah.
She's not going to be hurt or whatever. And now you all can go. You all can still go take a vacation because you've got family around that can support you, that will help you as well. We may not recommend, I think that it's good to be what I call a single couple for a little bit. Be by yourselves. Don't be in a rush to have children. But there are people who have had kids right away and still have a good relationship.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of my brothers had kids right away and honeymoon babies, okay, and have good relationships, very good marriages. But I also think that the support system around them helped with that.
Yeah.
And so right now we have a tendency to just it's just us raising our kids. But hey, if your parents are trustworthy, great.
Yeah.
If you've got cousins, aunties, uncles, brothers, sisters, when we had the triplets, there were times when my sister and her friends, teenagers, came to the house, 3 of them.
It was a blessing to me.
Just
They would spend a night, I'd buy them junk, and I would sleep for a solid 4 hours. It was a thing of beauty.
And they would just be up and watching movies and just keeping babies.
It was awesome.
And just giving that break.
Yeah.
That kind of thing can go a long way towards helping your marriage to keep working. I think that people almost take it for granted, like, oh, we're going to have these kids and we're going to be good. But you have to understand, no, we got to bring these people in. We got to do some stuff. With the triplets, there was like a period of time where you and I had barely had any time together. And I just kind of asked my mother, my sisters, hey, can you guys grab these guys for a weekend?
Yeah.
And we jumped in the car and went to Rockport.
Yep.
And that was the first time alone we had together since you had them. Having those kinds of people around and understanding the importance of that, not putting your relationship on automatic pilot and just thinking, oh, well, we have these kids and when they're in the first grade, we're going to be okay. It's absolutely possible for your children to ruin your relationship.
Yeah, because children are people.
Right.
They're not an accessory. They're actual people. They get personalities. They have wills, just like you. You were a child too. And just to make, to just piggyback on what he was saying and give this piece of advice. If you are thinking about having children right now, my suggestion is let's sit down and talk about how we're going to raise our child. What are our opinions about children? What do we both think about discipline? What do we think about how the child should eat? Because that's important, trust me. And because the things that we were able to do, like leave babies with family, some people won't even leave one child with their mother-in-law. That is because we agreed on how our children should be raised. And I think that it's very important before you get pregnant, before you're both trying to conceive, then to sit down and figure out what do we agree about how children should be raised, you know?
And that's hugely important because even in some of the people that we've counseled, sometimes at times their problem is that they're annoyed with each other over the way that the kid is being raised.
Right.
It's almost like you're spoiling him or you're spoiling her, and that ends up being a bone of contention for them.
Yeah.
Beyond just the time the kid takes, but it's almost like I stop liking you or you stop liking me because we can't agree about the kid. I'm kind of working on this new relationship book called More Like Than More Like Than Love.
Right.
And really talking about how important like is. You got to work to make sure you still like each other. I know it's Valentine's Day and it's the day of love, but like is key. If you don't keep that like there, and your kids can mess with your like, you may love each other because this is the mother of my child.
Right.
I'm your baby's daddy, okay? We may love each other, but to like each other, there's work that goes in there.
Absolutely.
All right.
This is a question for First. Do you think a woman or man should be completely healed from his or her past hurt/traumas before entering into a relationship?
Do I think a man or woman should be completely healed from their past before entering into a relationship? I guess the short answer is yes, but I think healing is such a journey, and I don't know how deep the hurt goes. I think that you need to be at a place of balance, and where your thinking isn't skewed there's no blanket statements over men or women before you enter into a relationship. Healing, like I said, is a journey. You know, it starts with realizing that you need healing, like the scab you realize that it's still sore under there because the scab comes off, but if it bleeds, it means that you really still need to let it scab back over and let that heal some more until if the scab comes off and it's not gone, it's not bleeding. If you're still bleeding, then you know that you are more hurt even in the present than you really know. You cannot move forward with anybody in a relationship until you heal what's behind you. But if you're always looking back, it just means that you're just not healed yet. It's hard to look forward when you're looking backwards. But yeah, I think that you need to come to a place of balance in your emotions and even the way you look at your past before you move forward with anyone else, because you'll just bring all of that into this relationship. And that's what we're finding mostly. And I think that's why the question's being asked, because maybe you're dealing with it. So if you're having a hard time in the relationship that you're in, I suggest that you sit down and spend some time with yourself. There's a lot of help out there. You don't even have to go to anybody. I'm not suggesting that you don't, but there's a lot of help where you could sit down, spend some time with yourself and say, am I over that? Am I at a place where I can talk about it and not get upset or angry or feel like everybody's like that, or every man's like that, or every woman's like that? That's how you know that you are moving towards healing. So I think, you should definitely be at a place where you're moving more towards being healed than sitting still being wounded.
Don't you think
Makes
that,
sense?
I mean, the question was for you.
Yeah.
So let me follow up in my interview place now.
I don't know what he's going to say. He's scaring me when he starts grinning. Go
Don't
ahead.
you think that at the same time, a person can also be a part of your healing to some extent? It's like, you do need to get to a place where you're healed. You are forgiven. You've let that person go. But I also think that it is possible for another person to restore your faith in the opposite sex sometimes. It's almost like you get even more healed as
Yeah.
you move forward.
Yeah, I do agree with that, which is one of the reasons in the back of my mind I said move towards healing.
Yeah.
There are people that are so wounded, honey, by their upbringing, their past, what men and women have done to them. We know people right now that we could both name that we're saying things like, yeah, but you know, they're in a relationship with someone and we're saying, but that's not that person. You have to believe that what they're saying, that's who they really are. You're just afraid because of what happened to you. You're not committing because of the things that happened to you. And so I think that had that person move just a tiny bit more towards their healing, and like I said, it's a journey, it's a process. And most people think that if they go to the altar and they get a word or whatever, that they're completely healed. No, we just scratched the surface and you got some walking to do.
Yeah.
But if you just move towards it, the person that you're with doesn't have to deal with, they're going to have to deal with something. We all come with something. They don't have to deal with so much and you're not wounding them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
So a follow-up from that is another person asks, has Pastor Andy helped you, First Lady, to heal from your old wounds?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, number one, because we were friends, I felt safe enough. I was just talking to one of my kids about feeling safe enough with someone to just share what you're really going through and how you really feel about something. He definitely did help me. And without going into too many specifics, because our stories can be a little bit long. Yeah, I mean, just in dealing with being abused sexually as a child, being able to let him know without having to be so mindful of his feelings or feeling like I was going to be judged, it really helped me to be able to say, this is why I'm responding this way. And because we were such good friends, he was understanding. So he, in essence, has helped me. He wasn't the complete help, but he did help me and make me feel safe enough to share with him at the very least. Yeah.
I mean, I think it goes a long way. I mean, that's a part of what you hope you find in a partner or a soulmate or someone that you really have that connection with.
Yeah.
Someone that you really are like, oh my gosh, we're vibing together, because I think that you do, you know, help to heal each other. You do help mend each other. You know, I think it's absolutely possible for guys to feel like there's no good women out there till they really meet a really good woman.
Right.
And then they're like, wow, this woman is just so great. It's restored my faith in women, and vice versa. I also think that it's possible to come into a relationship with baggage from your parents and stuff that happened in your home life. You know, and I think that those things can be a factor in who you pick and how you pick and who you choose and who you date and you know, and how that actually works for you. And I think positively or negatively, because you may end up picking somebody just like your father and your father wasn't good.
Right.
You may end up picking someone just like your mother because you're still trying to appease that person that can't be appeased. So you were raised by a woman who could never be pleased, and now you've just repeated that cycle in your relationship by choosing a woman that's never happy with you because you couldn't please your mother. So now you're trying to scratch that itch. So you have to know yourself and understand your own pathology.
Right.
You know, I think that the word talks about loving your neighbor the way you love yourself. Husbands are supposed to they love their wives the way they love themselves. And so I try to say to guys, okay, know yourself. You know, women need to know themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like some of the issues that we were dealing with early on. It's not like you didn't know why those issues were there.
Or I was ignoring it.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were able to communicate to me and say, well, this is happening because of this, because you knew yourself.
Yeah.
And I think if you know yourself, then you're going to choose someone that you do understand gets it.
Yeah.
You know, I was the oldest of 8 kids, and so my mother, God love her, had a kid every 2 years. So when I was 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, newborn, you can only imagine at the age of 10, I didn't get a lot of attention, okay, because my mother had all these other kids, newborn baby, and so how much I was heard or listened to or etc. So of course, I ended up in a relationship with someone who I felt like I could talk to, who would hear me, who wasn't too busy for me. And I think that I understood that about myself. I understood that scenario that happened with my siblings didn't make me mad at my siblings. I was never mad at my siblings. It just came between me and my mother. I just got to a point with my mother where I was just like, she doesn't have time for me and she doesn't care. So me and my mother's relationship was not good when I was a teenager. So understanding that, I was like, okay, I can't bring that into my relationship with my wife because the same thing will happen. I won't be mad at my kids. I'll be mad at the woman who has the kids. And so I think knowing yourself and having that understanding goes a long way towards understanding who you need to forgive. You need to forgive your mother. You have to forgive your father. You have to forgive your ex-boyfriend. You got to forgive your baby's mama. You have to forgive your ex-wife. You have to forgive your ex-husband. But you also have to understand what was going on in you at the time so that you don't end up with the exact same kind of guy or the exact same kind of woman that caused you the challenges that you had.
Yeah. Good.
You know?
What advice would you give to a spouse whose partner is not a good communicator?
Is that a question for me?
I can answer that question really well.
Yeah.
Because
It's
I
hard
think
'cause-
at first, like right now, you all are watching this, and I'm super excited about LaShawn being on the show with me. I'm sitting here like rubbing her leg under the table.
Distracting.
It's really cool. But honestly, I mean, when we first were together, I mean, you've always been articulate, but I don't know.
I was quieter. I was more intimidated by you because he's always been extremely verbal, you know. And I think, okay, let me think about, because I always want to answer the question.
No,
not
I was
just give our
trying to
opinion.
answer it. My point is, babe, is that when we were first together,
Yeah.
there were times when you like wrote me letters,
Yeah,
and when
I was getting to
when you wrote me those letters,
Yeah.
it basically made me say, "Wow, what is going on that makes her feel like she can't communicate to me? She has to write me a letter." So I felt like you were struggling with being communicating more confidently.
Yeah.
Because you would write me a letter. It made me feel like, okay, so when she's trying to communicate verbally, I'm either interrupting or I'm so combative to your point that it makes you just want to be like, look, I just want to write it so I can at least get it said because you're not letting me talk. So I felt like for me, it made me be like, you know what? I'm going to have to change my tactic when it comes to communication because I'm communicating in such a way that's so strong that makes you feel like you can't communicate.
Right.
And so that's one thing I would suggest from the, oh, you're the good communicator, you're in a relationship with a person that you feel like isn't quite communicating the way you are.
Yeah.
What do you do as the stronger communicator? Maybe you back off. Maybe you stop nitpicking over every little point. Oh, that wasn't a Tuesday, that was a Thursday. It was a Thursday. See, you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't get your facts straight. If the person's trying to say how they felt, don't get picky about the
You weren't like
details.
that. He was not like that.
I'm just
but that's funny.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
back off and
Yeah.
understand that they're trying to
Right.
express themselves to you and they don't need you. It already took a lot for them to even say something to you. They may have been feeling that way a long time.
Yeah.
And finally got the courage up enough to say something to you. You can't immediately go on the defensive.
Right. Yeah. Just what he said. I wrote letters, and the good thing is I didn't have to write a lot of letters. And I've always been pretty articulate, but I've never been really argumentative. I had to learn to, stay in the fight. I think sometimes you have to realize the reason why the person doesn't communicate well. We're assuming right now that there's a quiet person and a talkative person. And we don't know which of you is asking this question, but a person that doesn't communicate well could be a person that talks a lot, but just you don't know what they're saying. They don't stick on the point. Or we're assuming, because there are a lot of people like that, because we are all philosophers right now. But we'll stick with the person that's quiet and the person that talks. I think that, the more you realize why you need to just stand there and be able to say what you need to say, you'll be able to do it a little bit more, because the reason why you're doing it is not just to be heard, it is to make sure that you guys stay together. So I would give up and shut down because I felt like I wasn't heard. But then I realized that this was something to keep our marriage together. I started with what was easier for me. I wrote him a few letters. I think I only wrote you 3 letters in all the years we've been married.
Yeah.
And, you know, it worked because he had to listen to me. And he couldn't interject. He couldn't interrupt. And it helped us to get closer. If that is something that helps you, I would sit down and don't just vomit on paper though. You want to definitely sit down and think about what you're saying, and really the base of it should be, this is to help us stay together. He or she needs to just really learn where I'm coming from and how what they're saying or doing is making me feel this way and make me feel like I can't express myself. And just be ready to, if you're the one that talks more, be ready to listen, because one of the things I would say to either the man or the woman, whoever was the person that never really said anything, when they do say something, you really need to listen, because they don't really say anything much, you know. But so when the quiet person speaks up, you really need to pay attention, because they've been at their boiling point for a minute, or they're in despair.
I think you got into something too in that was kind of what was going on with us and maybe going on with other people. Because just because the person's being quiet doesn't mean that they can't talk.
Right.
Sometimes people are coming out of a past in which any kind of verbal conflict ended with no longer being together.
Yeah.
Or no longer in a relationship.
Yeah.
I was coming out of a family
Which is
where,
why you have to think about what you say and
right.
write. Yeah.
I was coming out of a family where we argued, we were loud, but the end of it was we were together.
Yeah.
You were coming out of a family where, hey, stuff got said, people
might get stabbed.
people got cut, okay?
That's just the truth.
Y'all are dodging ninja
The
stars.
arguments
You know what I'm
ended
saying?
in almost death.
Right. You got
know?
you're communicating while you're
Yeah.
swinging your nunchucks.
Yeah, so
So-
you just didn't argue with people.
Exactly. So it's like, I remember times in our early relationship where you were like, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like a really hard thing to hear. What do you mean it's not worth it? You're saying that this discussion or this argument with me, but it should be worth it because it's the most important relationship that you have.
That's true.
So it may be possible that the person isn't communicating not because they can't communicate or not because they don't have anything to say. And understand, if you're asking somebody that hasn't been talking a whole lot to talk, you need to really be ready to hear what they say, because don't ask for it if you can't handle it.
And let's give them just an example of this is something that just came back up in my mind. We would tell couples to do when you're trying to discuss something difficult. You know how Indians use a peace pipe or whatever. You have an object.
So politically
I
incorrect.
know that was. Please forgive me.
You can't say Indians
I know.
and peace pipe. Native Americans.
Honey, don't make a point of it.
Okay, sorry.
So, Native Americans, just forget the analogy. Just stick to what I'm saying.
Hold something.
Hold something. So when and a timer, most people need a timer. When we're discussing something, especially if it's difficult, because you need to train your ears to listen. Don't listen to respond. Listen so that the person can be heard and so you can actually receive. Pay attention to every word that's coming out of their mouth, and you only talk when you're holding the talking stick. We call this a talking stick. And so I'm just telling Pastor Andy, happy Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Even though you talk a lot, I love listening to you.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll take it back
Yeah,
and
and
say,
I'm quiet.
And I'll say,
Even though he was saying thank you while I was talking. Go ahead.
okay, I'll just say, happy Valentine's Day. Great life with you. Good talk. Okay. And I like your hat.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all this stuff is great. And I think that, having conversations with each other and listening
Yeah.
aggressively versus defensively, or
That's good.
offensively instead of defensively.
Yeah.
Instead of listening to just counter, listen to hear what the person's really saying.
Right.
And try to hear what they mean beyond just what they say.
That's good.
Because if they're saying they feel like you never talk to them, This is not the time to be like, okay, I talked to you on Tuesday, I talked to you on Wednesday, I talked to you on Thursday, I talked to you on Friday. See, you're crazy, like your mother.
Oh my God.
This is not the time to attack. Take in the feeling and
Yeah.
understand what makes this person feel like I don't talk to them.
Yes.
What makes this person feel like I don't listen to them, I don't hear them.
Yeah.
We have a tendency to judge other people based on what they do and ourselves on our intentions. Try to extend that feeling to the other person and try to get a feeling of what they meant. If they say to you, I know I said you make me tired, but I didn't mean I want to kill you. You
Why
took
you
it as I want to kill you. I didn't mean it that way. Accept it if they say that that's not how I meant it.
Yep.
When I said I was tired, I just meant I'm tired. No, you mean I make you tired. No, I'm not saying you make me tired. I'm just saying I'm tired. I'm just so tired of this. Oh, you're tired of me? No, that's not how I meant it. Being able to say, okay, I'll take that that's what you mean and you're not lying to me. But doing that goes a long way so that you can try to get down to the person's real meaning, because it's absolutely possible that someone can say something to you and you can make it mean something that they didn't really mean to say.
Right.
And you have the meaning something that they didn't mean. If I'm talking to LaShawn or anyone and they say, I didn't mean it that way, I just say, okay. I don't then go on to be like, why say it then? Well, then why you say it? Then why you say it? No, I have to be like, okay, you didn't mean it. All right, I understand. I misunderstood you because I thought you were saying that you're tired of me. But that's not what you're saying. Okay. So, understanding that, it goes a long way. This communication stuff is big.
It is big, yeah.
And
I think
people
taking
say
turns
stuff
is
and
important,
people
too.
low blow each other, and it's just,
Everybody's a little too defensive.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that is that words are very, very powerful.
Hard to take stuff back.
And if you say, and if you express an intention that your spouse or mate or boyfriend, girlfriend doesn't really have, and they're saying that's not my intention, that's what you're going to have. Because your words breathe life into something. So
Yeah.
you just have to decide before you say.
All right. We're so over time with
Yep.
that question.
Next question. What do you think is a healthy parent/teenager dynamic when it comes to teenagers' dating life?
Ooh,
This is a good one to us.
that is a good question.
We're working this thing out.
We got this going on right now.
Okay. What is you said a healthy dynamic
With parents
with
and
parents
teenagers.
and teenagers? Here's the thing. One of the things this man used to say, even before we had kids, was that we don't want to react to our children out of our own fears.
Yeah.
I don't know about him, I'll speak for myself. Within the last couple of years, 2-3 years, as the boys have gotten older, we have triplet boys, and they're now 18, so they started dating when they were about 15, 16, seeing little girls and that sort of thing. I never thought I'd be that mom that would be looking at a girl like, who is this ham scam? All right, let me just pull it back. So I think that a healthy dynamic, for instance, I had a talk with my son just this morning at like 6 something. We built a foundation of communication with our kids where we told them, if you're honest with us, we'll be fair. And there were times when they were younger where we would say, if you tell us the truth, you will not get disciplined. You won't get a spanking. And that in my book bled into them being teenagers, just saying, you can talk to us. Just be honest. We just ask for honesty. But our rules still stand, but we just need your honesty. I think that, kids, most people, it's not just teenagers, people run away from the truth because they are afraid of what you think about them. It's not just about getting disciplined or being on punishment or anything like that. It is that my son said to me this morning, we were talking, he said, I just don't want you to give up on me. And I'm like, I'm never going to give up on you. That's why I keep trying. I realize the end goal is that you're going to be fine. I told them both, you're gonna prosper. You're gonna make these mistakes, but I'm trying to help you. Your dad and I are trying to help you be wise and learn from your own mistakes. So I think the dynamic we have with our teenage boys right now is that we are constantly trying to guide them, through this life and not drag them through the life, because you really can't drag a horse to water and make them drink. You can't. And I think the same thing with teenagers. They've learned how to say, yes, ma'am, we live in the South. So yes, ma'am, thank you, yes, ma'am, and all right. And then like 2 weeks later, they do the exact same thing because they were doing it the whole time, And my hope is in, I'm trusting God with these kids, and I'm trusting that I'm doing my best, and that's what I lean on. But the dynamic between us is that we can talk. We talk no matter what it is, no matter how hurt we are, how mad we are, how angry we are. We want to hear the truth. We want to know what we can do to help, and we want to be heard just like them. But the main thing is we've established a communication bridge with our children.
I think that, this is a great question, because I think that there are a lot of parents, especially Christian parents, that kind of don't want to deal with their childhood's, their kids cusping manhood or womanhood. They don't want to deal with it. And I think that if you don't deal with it, it's going to happen either.
Yeah.
It's going to happen either way. Yeah. We adopted a long time ago kind of a posture of, okay, you can talk to us. We can, that way we can at least help to guide you with who you like, who you're dating. Because if we're just like, you can't date nobody in Jesus' name, then what's going to happen is that they're just going to
say that.
They're going to do that without you knowing, and they're just going to do it behind your back, and then you can't influence them. I think you start off with your children with authority, and the older that they get, you slide more into influence than just authority.
Yeah.
They're both powerful. Sometimes as parents, we are so hard on the authority that we don't show them that we're ready to influence them in a positive way. Influence is powerful. Some of you don't have a relationship with your parents because you're 35 and your mother just can't get off the fact that she's no longer in authority over your life.
Yeah.
Because you have your own job, you have your own money, you have your own car. You don't go over there a lot because when you do, she starts trying to tell you what to do. She doesn't understand her role is now more influence than it is authority. She can still have power, but it's influential power, not authority. And I think that with our teenagers, I know they're still living under my house and they're still in my roof and they're going to do what I say. I got you, no doubt. Me too. I feel that exact same way. If I say come home, they better come home. And if they can't come home, then they can't live with me. I get that. But also understand that authority is only going to go but so far with a teenager. Yeah. Inevitably, you're going to have to open up the lines of communication so that you can speak life to them and begin to influence their decisions in a positive way. Yeah. The other thing I think is that, and I just said this to a parent like 2 days ago, and we were just talking about this last night on our little pre-Valentine's playing hooky from church. Glad I got other people that can preach. Because you were just looking too cute. I just didn't want to come here. Anyway, I think that I was just saying to a parent that I think for all of us, we have these really great ideals with our kids. Like we have this dream for them. Like you have this daughter and you just have this dream of her walking down the aisle in white, a virgin, and I totally get that. I hear you. Amen. Me too. 1,000%. Yes. I think you have to then balance that against the worst that can happen to her, which is her death. Okay. And then you have to figure out, are you upset about the ideal not being reached? Can you take a step back? Can you say, all right, maybe this kid isn't going to be this perfect kid that I thought, but you know what? But still, this is still something, and it's still possible for them to get to this goal of real blessing, even though they didn't take the ideal path I always wanted for them. Right. And I think that 2 of our sons have made us have to do that. They made us have to reevaluate what our dream was for them, accept them for what some of the mistakes that they made, still believe in them, and say, okay, all right, well, okay, there goes the All right, well, the weed thing happened, so we wanted you to never smoke weed. Okay, that's gone. Okay, now, can we get you back on a track where you still graduate from college and you still end up being a successful person?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh my God, you smoke weed, I'm done with you. I think some Christian parents are just like, I bind you. And it's just, and now this kid feels like, oh my God,
sometimes we're so busy fighting with our kids that we're not teaching them how to fight.
Right.
And I was saying it to the boys in the car this morning. I drove them to school and I said to them, you know, I see the end game and you guys win no matter what. I know that you win because I have to speak life, but I do know that you win and this is not your end. And I said, here, let's take this opportunity to teach you guys how to fight. And when they were little, like kids get, you know, they get afraid of the dark, some kids. I say to parents, take every stage of your child's life to teach them how to deal with that stage. Don't just cover it over with, I'll do it for you, I'll do it for you, I'll do it for you. Because some people go from one extreme to the next. They just let their kids go and do whatever they want,
Right.
or they just keep them in a little, you know, a little glass dish, and then the dish gets broke, and they're mad about the broken, you know, container that their kids were in, and they go hog wild crazy when they get out. It's like, let's find a middle ground, but know that we made mistakes as young people. I mean, the percentage of teenagers that walk through life and they never make any mistakes, we realize that that's really low. And your kids may make some of the similar mistakes that you made, but you made it, so teach them how to make it. And so that's what I was saying to the boys. I want to teach you guys how to make it. Your dad and I are doing everything we can to teach you how to fight, you know, because we don't want you to leave here weak. So you're going to have to fight this thing. And I'm like, so get out the car and go fight.
I mean, it's almost just like germs.
Yeah.
Like you want to keep your kid away from germs, and I get that. But there's a certain amount of it that also builds up their antibodies against further issues.
Yeah.
And I think the same is true with a teenager. I went to Bible school right out of high school, and believe me, there were some people that were in Bible school, in the university, their parents had never let them do anything, okay? Their parents were so strict, so Jesus on the main line, and they never let their teenager do anything. And when they got to school, they were out of control. It was just the wildest thing. It's like, if we knew we wanted to find something not good to do, we went to that campus of that Christian university. I'm not going to name it, because the people there were wild, because they had never been allowed to do anything. And so I guess what we're saying is, we're not saying let your kid do everything, but we're also saying don't keep your kid from doing nothing. You're going to have to give wisdom to your child. It's something that I've said. I don't know if I've said it on this show, but your children go through 3 phases. The first phase is discovery. The second phase is testing. The third phase is conclusion drawing. If you have an 18-month-old kid, they're in discovery right now. If you have an 8-month-old kid, they're in discovery right now. They're putting everything in their mouth. They're discovering the world. You can't wrap them up in duct tape and stick them on top of the refrigerator. They want to see stuff. They want to touch stuff. They want to know what's that. They want to grab your phone. They want to hold stuff. Their brain is taking in information like never before. When you say to a 2-year-old, come here, now they're testing you to see, do I have to come? They know what you mean, but they're testing. Yeah. And if you discipline, they will draw the right conclusions. And by the time they're 8 or 9, they have some sense. If you have a 9-year-old kid that has no sense, you didn't help them draw the right conclusions. Discovery, testing, conclusion drawing. Puberty hits them and erases their disc. And they're back at the beginning again. Now they're discovering girls. They're discovering their bodies. They're discovering you. You used to be the gods they worship. Now they look at you and they're like, clean my room, look at your room. You know, they realize that you got an attitude because it's your cycle, because they're on their cycle. They see you differently now. They're discovering everything. They're discovering boys, they're discovering girls, they're discovering life, and they're going to test you. And you have to, again, help them draw the right conclusions so that hopefully by the time they get a license, you can trust them.
Yeah.
And you can't wrap them up in duct tape and not let them discover. You'll stunt their development. You have got to let them discover at 12 and 13 and 14 and guide them along. You're going to have to watch them. Just like when you had a kid that was 2 and you'd be like, where are they? What are they in? And they came back covered in powder. in the same way, you know, you got to watch that 14-year-old little kid. You got to look at their phone. You got to go through their drawer because they are discovering, and you can't be mad that they got into the powder. You got to be mad at yourself. Like, I should have watched this little kid. I needed to put locks on the toilet because they're splashing with the water. It's not their fault they're splashing in the water. You should have put a lock on the toilet.
Yeah.
So, the teenager is the exact same thing. And you have to understand that process. And if you do, then you can help them become, we all want to get our kids to their early 20s whole and healthy and out, and out in a healthy way, without all these particular issues. That's our job. But it's not. At this point, I want my boys to graduate from college healthy. I don't know if I want them to graduate from college perfect, because I don't know if that's even possible. I think that I've had to, for anybody.
Yeah.
I wasn't perfect. You weren't perfect. We weren't virgins when we got married. It would have been great if we had.
Something that they say they're holding on to.
Hallelujah, in Jesus' name.
Jesus.
But I'm just saying, I wasn't a virgin when I got married. You weren't a virgin when you got married. It doesn't mean that I don't want them to be virgins, but at this point right now, that's not the end all. They're not going to totally die if they don't live this perfect little life that you had planned for them. You've got to be open to life. You made it. Teach them what you know, and never give up on your teenagers.
Never give up.
And keep talking to them. You can't not talk to them. Some parents just don't want to deal with it. I had a preacher friend who was he said to me, "My daughter ain't never gonna date nobody," and I just was like, all right,
It's gonna be tough.
okay, I hear that. You know, she has a child right now.
Yeah.
Now she has a child. She's a teenager with a child now, because he just didn't want to deal with it. He didn't want to face truth that she's gonna date. She's just not gonna tell you. And so you want to be open so that you can say, "Let me meet the guy. How you doing, young man? Nice to see you. Have my daughter back here by 10. What exactly are you guys doing?" Our boys tell us so much that we're almost like, okay,
Yeah.
TMI,
I was like, son,
TMI.
I'm so glad you trust me this much, but there are just some things a mother doesn't want to know.
Thanks a lot.
The visual you just gave me, I don't
It's like we've almost gone too far with it, but I think better that than.
And they still make mistakes. They still,
Almost definitely.
Yeah, so just to cap that off, you're going to have to put your children in God's hands. You're going to have to trust the Lord and do your very best with them, to be good parents.
Okay, I know we're coming down to the end. Our hour's wrapping up. You got one more really good question. Okay, I'm concerned about this thing always tries to reset in like an hour. Are we still good? You want to reset it now? What do you want to do? 2 minutes? There's no way we're going to answer another question in 2 minutes. It's just not humanly possible.
You just have to shorten your answer and be mindful not to go over something twice.
You talked almost the whole 5 minutes. By the time I spoke up, it was a minute left. LaShawn, Jesus be offense. You talked
for an extra 5 minutes. Where's the stick?
Honey.
We're going to argue in front of these people. We might as well do it right. So I have it. Honey.
Sean.
Okay.
Be saved.
That ain't hard for me.
Last question.
What is the woman's role when a man is courting her? What should she do as a step up from a girlfriend but not yet a wife?
Ooh.
Wow, that's
what is the
really
woman's role
good question.
when a man is dating her? What's the step up from girlfriend, not quite wife, but stepping up?
I'm assuming she's stepping up.
She's trying to figure out.
Is she trying to step up?
She's trying to step up, babe.
She's trying to
figure.
up.
Or maybe it's a guy who's like, "Yo, this girl is my girl.
Yeah.
She ain't my wife yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, I should be getting a little bit more than what I was getting from the girlfriend. That maybe it's a guy. I doubt it. It's probably a woman that's asking this question.
You know what's tough these days? And I'm gonna be super spiritual for just a
No,
minute.
don't be too spiritual.
You don't want me to be too spiritual?
No, go ahead, babe. You be
Okay.
yourself.
I mean, we are saved, though, right?
But be proud of
Okay,
who you
all
are.
I'm saying.
Be proud of who you are.
I'm just concerned with how low our bar is. I won't get into that. But with that being said, I have to deal with what the times are, or what people are doing in these times. So the step up from, and you're going to definitely have to clarify all that I'm trying to say. The step up from girlfriend to more, I guess, engaged would be the next phase. What is your role? Well, from my knowledge, it takes a long time just to get to girlfriend, because you could be sleeping together, you could be doing a lot of things and just be like, yeah, we're just, you know,
Still
sex buddy,
talking
just
or-
talking.
In
You could be
today's culture,
doing-
that's how
in
it is
today's
today.
culture. But I'm
Right.
gonna assume that, okay, girlfriend means that you guys have kissed. We're talking about the physical. You guys have kissed. You guys have, you know, done everything but maybe. Or how much you do for the woman or the man. We're going to try to answer that all. What's your responsibility to them? I think a girlfriend is someone that you're getting to know, and you're getting to know them better, and you're assuming that this person is in the midst of an application for a spouse, right? So you're filling out your application, and your role is to take every part of what that application means. What do they like? What do they not like? How well do our personalities fit together? Can we even get to a point where we're engaged and then married to make a life? Do I like this person? Not just I'm in love or in passion with them. I think that's in that girlfriend, boyfriend stage. That's my opinion. And what your role is there is really, like, you know, just equating to what you were saying about teenagers, is you're discovering each other. Is it possible? It shifts, I believe, when you're engaged to, do our lives coincide? Can we, it's more application. You're filling out another form and you're saying, can our lives be forever together? Do we have the same ideals when it comes to living this life, so that when we have kids, can we put our finances together? Do we agree on those things? You know, our sex life, you know, Pastor has this great analogy of SMIRK, this great acronym, SMIRK, sex, money, intangibles, religion and kids. And it's great. You should look it up. I think you can find it online on our YouTube channel. But you're trying to figure out, can this be a life partner? So your responsibilities are to do what we were saying in the beginning. I think you have to know yourself well enough to know whether or not this person is going to be the right person for you to marry. I'm assuming you may not be having sex. I'm just going to assume that you're being a Christian and you're not having sex. But if you're not, you know, if you've already living together and all that, and you're trying to figure out if you should be married, then your responsibilities get a little bit muddy. But it's possible that, you know, you can just step it up a little bit, put your money together, and really think about when the wedding's gonna be, start saving together. I'm trying to think of practical stuff, because that is a really, really loaded question. The timer?
Yeah, I can't see it.
We can't see the timer.
I want you to see it because I want you to see.
He wants to tell me I'm over time, but he's wasting my time.
No, I'm not wasting your
by
time.
saying-
I'm just telling you, the thing has totally shut down. You've been, look.
25 seconds!
You talked the whole 5 minutes. This is my point. Here's
Right.
what, okay.
My God,
So
this
when
is why I don't come on this man's
when
show.
when I said you talk,
Honey, but I still have 13 seconds.
I
Are
know.
we supposed to both talk in 5 minutes?
yes, we were both
Oh.
supposed to talk in 5 minutes.
Well, you've not shared the 5 minutes with me many times in the
Okay,
show.
that's great. I'm super excited about it. You got it, babe. Here's all I'm saying. We're both saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Here's the
Start
thing.
the 5 minutes again,
You're
Dimitri.
coming together.
Pastor, 'cause I'm gonna watch the clock.
Instead of you trying to come together like that, like
Yeah.
a clap, which can hurt. You are trying to come together
Yeah.
slowly and trying to figure out how do things fit together.
Yeah.
The question is, and all the stuff you said is great. Does our money fit? Do our relationships fit? Do we see the world the same way? Do we agree? All of that stuff is very important. And I think a part of the problem is that people do smash their bodies together before they figure out if the other pieces fit. So now they've got this sexual relationship, but emotionally they're not compatible, or when it comes to what's going to happen with the kids, or you know, we were saying earlier, when it comes to the kids, you need to talk about how you're going to, we've dealt with couples in which we're like, how did you not talk about this?
Right.
How did you not know this?
Right.
Because they slammed their bodies together before they realized whether or not everything else came together. I think when it comes to the roles, I think that, because that's kind of the question, how do I step up? Like, what's my role now? So maybe as a girlfriend, I wasn't necessarily responsible for a meal, because that does start to happen. It's like people start to expect wife stuff from people, and they ain't wife yet. You know what I'm saying? People start expecting a woman, guys especially, it's almost like they're trying to see, can you do the work? And you don't have the role. Like you don't actually
That's
have the
good.
position,
Yeah.
but they're trying to see, but you got wifey qualities? And now they have wifey expectations of
Yeah.
a woman that's still in a girlfriend spot. May not even be engaged yet, you know? I think that there are things that you do start to do for one another that does help one another. Sure, if you're his wife, you're gonna pick his daughter up from daycare. He's got a daughter from his previous baby's mama. He's like, hey, can you grab her for me? That is definitely something you're gonna do as a wife. Is that a role? Is that a responsibility now? Is that something you now can do? There are going to be things like that you do show, yes, I can do that.
Right.
That is something I will do. You know, okay, I can wash your clothes, or I can pay for dinner. Because, you know, it's almost like when you're first are together, think about when we first were together, Sean. Before we got married, there were things we were starting to do for each other that are marital stuff.
Right.
I was picking you up all the time. You know, you were doing all kinds of stuff for me. We weren't married yet,
Right.
but the roles did start to happen.
We were engaged, yeah.
We were engaged. There were things that we were doing for each other to say, yeah, this is something I'm going to continue to do.
Right.
And you are kind of trying on some of those roles, and you do start to do some of those things. And I think knowing where the boundaries are has to do with communication and talking and having those kind of conversations, because that is what starts to happen. A guy is trying to see, okay, are you going to be able to be someone I can lean on? A woman is trying to see, okay, are you going to be someone that I can depend on?
Right.
If I ask you to pick my son up, are you saying, I'm not picking him up right now. When I'm your husband, I'll pick him up. Well, there are some things like that you can do that are not necessarily crossing the line totally into spousal duties. You do start to do that. Your lives are coming together,
Right.
and you're trying to help one another. You're trying to support one another. And I think that that's ultimately the main question. Are you serving one another? Are you on the same team? Is it helping you to be together? You know,
Yeah.
there were things that I was doing for you, LaShawn.
Yeah.
You were at work, and I was
Wash my
going to your
clothes.
apartment and washing your clothes, and then putting them back, and then going to school and going to
Yeah.
basketball practice. There were things like that we were doing for each other when we weren't married yet.
Right.
So, you know, you do start to do stuff for each other,
Yeah.
to serve each other. And I mean, you cooked a lot of meals. We ate a lot of meals together. We weren't married yet. And so it was kind of like right. And it wasn't like you were like, okay, don't get used to these meals, Mr. Boyfriend. No, it was kind of like, no, we're slowly coming together.
Yeah.
And these are the things that we do for each other. And I think that you are trying to show the person that you can handle wifey.
Right.
You are trying to show the person, hey, babe, you marry me, I got you.
Right.
I can do that. No worries about that. I can even do it now. I can pick you up. Sure. You have to be careful not to be like, and that's husband. So keep on walking it out, and no, it's you are slowly working together. Your lives are coming together slowly. You don't want to crash. That's a good thing. All right. So listen, this has been a great show.
It's been a great show.
This has been an awesome show.
Awesome show.
Babe, let me tell you something. And I ain't scared of you, so I'm just telling
Why
you.
do you always say you're not scared of me?
Because, honey, people
I don't
think.
need you to be scared
But
of me.
people think that husbands say good stuff because they scared of their wife. Like
Really?
they scared. Yes.
That's what people think?
Yes.
That's what people think?
Yes. So
I
listen,
guess wives are scary.
this was great. We had a good show.
We had a good show. It's fun.
Happy Valentine's
Happy
Day to everybody
Valentine's
that's out
Day.
there.
All my sisters out there, do something really cool for yourself today.
Guys, listen, if you've got a woman, something, cards, flowers, time, date, take her to cookout, get her a shake,
Oh, I would love a shake. from
something, anything. Get a biscuit from wherever you may be, all the way in California, go to In-N-Out, wherever you might be, in Germany, go get a kraut.
Cookout. Whatever it is,
Dog,
make
whatever.
it quality time.
Do something with each other. Happy Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's Day, everybody. Love you guys.
After this, we're going to spend more time together. Our
Yes.
boys have a state tournament game in Charlotte.
Yep.
We're going to get a chance to spend even more time together and to talk more because communication is the key.
It's key.
Like
Yes.
is just as important, if not maybe even more important than love. But if you put the work in, if you communicate with each other, talk with one another, stay on the same side of the
Yes.
table, you really can build a love, a life, a relationship that will last forever.
Amen. Be a good team.
Be a good team.
Bye, guys.